I've been hauling freight for over 20 years, coast to coast, back and forth, same white lines on black asphalt, same gas station coffee, same radio static. You get used to solitude in this line of work. You learn to notice small things because they're all you have to keep your thoughts in line. That's how I noticed the dog. Noticed him and kept noticing him. It was late September, 2 years ago, on I-40, headed west out of Nashville. I pulled into a rest stop about 30 miles out, the one with the faded Pepsi machine and busted vending light. Nothing fancy. I'd stopped there more times than I could count, always quiet, just a couple of semis cooling their brakes, and maybe 1 or 2 beat-up sedans with sleeping travelers. That morning, I got out to stretch, took a quick walk to shake off the road, and there he was. Sitting on the same bench, looking out toward the road like he was waiting for someone. A beagle. Medium size, tricolor. White blaze on the chest, ears like silk. Looked about 6 or 7 years old. He was sitting straight, not lying down. Like he was expecting someone. At first, I thought someone must be nearby. Maybe a car in the parking lot. But I looked around, nothing. Just him, sitting there, watching the road. I walked up cautiously, didn't want to scare him. He looked at me, tail gave a couple of hopeful wags, then went still again. He didn't bark. He didn't come over. Just sat there, alert. Watching, waiting. I didn't think much of it at the time. Gave him a nod, a quiet, "Hey, buddy," and went to grab some water from my cab. I left a bottle cap's worth near the bench before I left, just in case. He didn't touch it before I pulled out. The next time I passed through, 3 days later, I saw him again. Same rest stop, same bench, same dog. This time it was raining. Not pouring, but steady enough to soak through. He wasn't hiding from the rain. Just sat there, head up, soaked. Watching the road. Now, I've seen stray dogs before. Happens a lot at truck stops. But something about this one, there was no scavenging, no pacing, no digging around in trash. Just waiting. Focused. The third time I saw him, about 5 days later, I brought food. Beef jerky and a leftover half sandwich I'd kept cool in the mini fridge. He was still on that bench. Eyes followed every car that pulled in, ears perked each time a diesel engine hissed to a stop. But when he saw it wasn't whoever he was waiting for, he'd just look away. I knelt down slowly, held the food low. "Come on, fella, you hungry?" He stood up but didn't come over. Instead, he looked around again. Like he was hoping maybe I'd stepped out of someone else's truck. Someone he knew. I placed the food a few feet away and backed up. Eventually, he walked over, sniffed it, then lay down next to the bench while eating. Didn't gobble it like he was starving. Ate slow, like he was used to being fed regular meals. That's when it really hit me, this wasn't a stray. This dog belonged to someone. And that someone had left him. I talked to the janitor who was emptying bins near the bathroom. He was an older guy, friendly. Told me, yeah, he's been here a while. Couple weeks at least. Folks say he got dropped off. Some family pulled in, let him out, and drove off. Didn't even look back. 2 weeks? I asked. He nodded. Maybe more. He never leaves that bench. Sleeps under it at night. Won't come to nobody. I tried calling the local shelter, but they're full up. I couldn't stop thinking about him. I pulled out later that afternoon, but that night at the truck stop motel in Amarillo, I found myself picturing those big brown eyes. The kind of eyes that had seen something they didn't understand, someone they trusted, driving away. Over the next couple weeks, I made it a point to stop by every time I passed through. Sometimes he was sitting up, sometimes he was lying down. But always there. Same bench. Same stillness. I started calling him, Sammy. "Hey, Sammy," I'd say every time I stopped. "Still waiting, huh?" Sometimes I brought real dog food. Other times, chicken from a gas station or ham from my sandwich. Slowly, he got used to me. One day, he even wagged his tail when I got out of the truck. But he still wouldn't come close. It was October when I started asking around. Nearby rest stops, truckers, even gas station attendants. Had anyone seen someone drop off a beagle? Most people hadn't noticed, but a few remembered. A trucker named Dennis told me, "Yeah, I saw a minivan there about a month back. Family with kids. Dog got out with the kids when they went to use the bathroom. When they left, they just called the kids and left the dog." I thought maybe he'd find his way back. But he didn't. Sammy stayed. That bench became his whole world. I called shelters. All full. I asked a vet in Jackson if they'd take him. They said not unless he was sick. I thought about just picking him up and putting him in the truck. But he wouldn't let me touch him. He was too wary, and I started to get it. Sammy wasn't just scared, he was holding out hope. For them. He still thought they'd come back. That's what broke my heart the most. A cold snap hit in early November. Night temps started dropping. I left an old blanket near the bench and watched from my cab as he sniffed it, then curled up with it that night. That's when I decided I couldn't keep passing through. I couldn't keep seeing him there, day after day, thinking someone would come back who never would. So I changed my route. I talked to my dispatcher, requested more eastern loads that would bring me past that rest stop. I even slept there a few nights when I didn't need to. Just so he'd see me. Get used to me, so he'd know someone was coming back. Not the person he hoped for, but someone who cared. It took almost a month. One night, just before Thanksgiving, I got out of my cab and sat on the cold concrete a few feet from the bench. Sammy lifted his head, then laid it back down. I didn't speak much, just sat there, let him see I wasn't a threat. Eventually, slowly, he got up and walked over. Sat a few inches away. I didn't move. Then, without looking at me, he leaned over and rested his head on my knee. That was it. Right there, on that cold November night, Sammy chose me. And that's when everything changed. The moment Sammy rested his head on my knee, everything in me tightened up, like I was holding back something I didn't want him to see. Relief, guilt, sadness, whatever it was, it nearly choked me. He stayed like that for maybe a minute. Then he backed off, went back to the bench, and laid down. But it wasn't like before. It wasn't hopeless. It felt like he was saying, okay, maybe you're not them, but maybe you're something else. I didn't try to pet him that night. I just whispered, good boy, and let him be. Next morning, I found him curled up in the blanket I'd left. Frost had rimmed the edges. I brought over some warm chicken from the truck stop diner. He ate right next to me this time. Over the next few days, I kept coming back. I stopped pushing, just showed up, fed him, sat nearby. One morning, when I held out my hand, he sniffed it, then licked my fingers. I swear that little lick almost undid me. It was the first real gesture of trust. That was when I decided he was coming with me. But it wasn't that simple. Sammy still wouldn't let me pick him up. If I made any move toward his collar, or tried to stand up too fast, he'd bolt a few feet away. I couldn't just grab him. That would break what little trust we'd built. So I started carrying a leash with me. Let him sniff it. See, it wasn't a threat. It took nearly a week before I could loop it gently over his head. When I did, I didn't tug. Just let it hang there while he sat beside me. He didn't fight it. That night, I left the truck door open and sat on the step, leash loose in my hand. Come on, Sammy, let's go home. He looked at me, looked at the cab, back at the bench, and then he walked toward the truck. Stopped, turned back one last time. I swear, he looked out toward the highway, like maybe, just maybe, he'd see that minivan again. Then he climbed up. That was the start of everything. I'll tell you something about truck cabs. They're not designed with dogs in mind. But Sammy made it work. First day, he curled up in the passenger seat like he'd always belonged there. Didn't bark, didn't whine. Just sat quietly, looking out the window. I drove slow that day. He didn't eat until we stopped at a rest area in Arkansas. I brought him some fresh water and a bit of roast beef. He took it gently. His eyes never left me. We didn't go far that first week. I kept my routes short. Gave him time to adjust. We stopped at small-town vets to make sure he was healthy. No chip, of course. Nothing to identify him. The vet said he was about 6 or 7, heartworm negative, a little underweight, but otherwise fine. You keep him? The vet asked. I think he kept me, I replied. It wasn't all easy. Sammy had his moments. Sometimes, if a car that looked too much like a minivan pulled into a rest stop, he'd go stiff. His ears would lift, tail twitch. He'd stare hard, like waiting to hear a familiar voice. And when no one came, he'd curl up with his back to the door and sleep. Not because he was tired, because he was hurt. I started talking to him more. Telling him what city we were in, what kind of freight I was hauling, how much farther until our next stop. I don't know if he understood, but he listened. Always. And slowly, the road became ours. He got used to the rhythm. The sound of the Jake brake winding down. The beep of fuel pumps. The crinkle of snack bags when I opened one and handed him the first bite. He learned my schedule better than I did. Knew when I was about to shut it down for the night. Knew when to expect a treat. Knew that every morning started with a walk and a, "You ready, Sammy?" He started sleeping with his head on my thigh while I drove. Started greeting other truckers at rest stops. Never barked. Just watched. Always watching. He never forgot the bench. Never forgot why he ended up there. That kind of hurt doesn't leave easy. One night in Mississippi, we pulled into a rest stop where a family was picnicking. 2 kids ran over to pet him, and he flinched hard, almost jumped back into the truck. I told the kids to give him space. That was the first time I realized he hadn't been just abandoned. He'd been broken. But day by day, mile by mile, Sammy stitched himself back together. By Christmas, he was wagging his tail at strangers. By New Year's, he was barking at deer on the side of the road. He started leaning his head out the window when I cracked it open. I bought him a bed for the passenger seat, then gave up trying to keep him off mine. And every once in a while, I caught him smiling. Yes, dogs smile. We made it through winter, spring, and into summer. I started seeing familiar faces at the same stops. Some truckers remembered Sammy. "That's the bench dog, right?" one guy asked in Oklahoma. "Yeah," I said. "Not anymore, though. Now he's the road dog." They all had their own theories. Some thought he'd been dumped on purpose. Others thought he got lost and no one came back for him. Me? I stopped trying to guess. What mattered was that he wasn't alone anymore. The only place he wouldn't go near was that old rest stop. We passed it once in early spring, just to see. As we pulled in, Sammy stood up in the cab and looked around. His ears were up, nose twitching. I parked. He looked at the bench. Then turned and laid down with his back to it. I didn't get out. We sat there a while. Then I started the engine and pulled away. And that was the last time we ever went back. I'm not a man who talks about feelings much. But that dog? He changed something in me. Made me softer in places I didn't know were still alive. He reminded me what it means to show up, to stay, even when someone's hurting too much to ask for help. He taught me patience. He taught me loyalty. And I'd like to think I taught him something too, that not everyone leaves. That some people stop, wait, and stay. The first time Sammy barked for me, I was fueling up outside of Flagstaff. It had been about 7 months since he climbed into my truck that cold November night. We were parked in the diesel lane, and I'd stepped inside the station to grab coffee. I wasn't gone more than 5 minutes, but when I came back, there he was, standing upright in the cab window, tail stiff, eyes locked on the door like it was life or death. And when I opened the door, one bark, sharp, quick, just one, not at me, for me. It was like he was saying, "There you are." It hit me harder than I expected. Because that bark didn't come from the dog I found at the bench. It came from the dog who had finally figured out where he belonged. With me. I started making changes around that time. Nothing major at first. Just little things. I stopped pulling 12-day stretches. Cut my runs down. Fewer overnights, more regional routes. Sammy was a great road dog, but I didn't want him growing old in the passenger seat of a Peterbilt. And make no mistake, he was growing older. By the 2nd year, his muzzle had started graying. His trot turned into more of a careful step. Sometimes, getting up into the cab took 2 tries. I added a ramp. Put in a cooling mat for summer. Heated blanket for winter. He still loved the road, oh, how he loved it. But he loved me more. He no longer scanned rest stops for someone else. He didn't flinch at kids or hide from vans. He leaned into my hand when I scratched his ears. He stretched out his legs and sighed when I read off the next day's stops like it was bedtime stories. He was, at last, safe. And he knew it. 3 years passed like that. We had a rhythm, a good one, and Sammy became a legend in the long-haul world. Truckers would walk up, not to talk to me, but to see him. That the Beagle? The one from Tennessee? The highway bench dog? Yeah, that was him. And he sat proud in the passenger seat like he knew it. Every time someone asked about him, I'd tell the story, briefly at first, then longer if they stuck around. The way he waited, the way he watched, how many days passed. How many people walked by. How he didn't give up hope even when it hurt. And then how he chose me. Some truckers cried. Grown men, tough as steel, hiding their eyes in their sleeves. Because they understood. In this business, it's easy to feel abandoned. Left behind. Forgotten. But Sammy never forgot. He didn't know who had left him. But he knew someone came back. It was the fall of the 5th year when I noticed he was slowing down for real. Didn't want to get out at every stop. Slept more. Ate less. His eyes, always sharp and searching, got that faraway softness that animals get when they're tired deep in their bones. We were on a route from Georgia to Kansas. I knew, somehow, that this might be his last long trip. At night, I stopped early. Gave him extra space on the mattress behind the cab. Left the window cracked so he could smell the air. He used to lift his head and sniff. Now, he just lay there, quiet. One morning outside Tulsa, he didn't get up. I knew it was coming. But nothing prepares you for the moment. I sat beside him in the sleeper, stroking his head. He looked up, tail gave one small wag. His breathing was shallow, calm, like he was just done running. I whispered, "It's okay, Sammy. You don't have to wait anymore." And a few minutes later, he was gone. I buried him in Tennessee. Not far from the rest stop where we met. A little ways off the road, behind a line of pines where the trucks can't be heard. I asked permission from the landowner, a farmer who'd lost his own dog the year before. I carved a small wooden marker. Nothing fancy. Sammy. He waited. I came back. I sat there for hours after, just remembering. The bench. The cold nights. The head on my knee. And everything that came after. These days, I still drive, but not as much. I've taken a semi-retirement. Still run some loads when I feel like it. The cab's quieter now. Passenger seat empty. I leave his ramp in place, even though I don't need it. Old habits. People still ask me about him. I still tell the story. And every time I get to the part where he rested his head on my knee, I have to pause. Because that was the moment the whole world turned. You see, Sammy didn't just wait for someone. He taught me what it meant to be waited for. To be chosen. And when I pulled away from that rest stop for the last time, with Sammy in the seat beside me, I wasn't just rescuing a dog. I was saving myself. Epilogue. If you ever find yourself on I-40, east of Nashville, there's a rest stop with a red bench near the vending machines. You might not notice it. Most don't. But every now and then, if you sit there quietly, you might feel something. A wait. A whisper. Like a dog waiting patiently, eyes on the road, ears perked for a voice that never came, until one finally did. And if you listen closely, you might just hear the echo of paws on pavement, a low bark from a passing truck, and a heart that never gave up hope. That was Sammy.